Okay. I see it was like three people and then it's down back down to one because I guess nobody's seeing it. Yeah. I started late. It's all right. Whatever. I'm not getting that many viewers anyways. So um, I go for a little while longer. Maybe when I get to stream 200, maybe I'll decide to fold up the streaming portion. In which case, I'll just be doing my updates. But we'll see. Okay, so for you one person that's in here, which is probably the rookie, considering that work today. He's not on his work account, so he's not apparently not at work. So he might if oh, we got two people. That's good. Um, Probably one from each, I suppose. We got one viewer watching from YouTube. Yeah, let's bring that down a little bit here. See the chat window. Here, let's bring it further down. That here we can actually expand this out just a little bit. Doesn't really matter. And Enchanted Lands, we have one viewer in Rumble. So one and one, which is okay. Let's go back to here and okay. So thank you, Rumble and YouTube viewer. Um, okay. Yeah, it's just I don't know, it's just the way things work out, I guess. I need to be a little bit less lax or something. I don't know, I'm still kind of lazy, I guess. Or I don't know if it's laziness. But I guess that's what it is, though. We eat and then I realized I had to go out and it's, let's clear that. I realized I had to go out and do a little bit of the lawn. Not very much of it, but a little bit of it. And pain in the butt. I'm trying to get it down to a height of 3, which is the measurement, which is the numbers on the blade height. I don't remember the exact like actual height of the blade, but I have like 1 through 7 steps, and so I'll start with 7 with the highest grass, and then I'll drop down to 5, and then I'll drop down to 3, and 3 is about the lowest I can go without like kind of scraping the ground, so to speak. But it's kind of hard because we've had this super long grass in the back, and like I hadn't got to it like most of the summer, and um, only now just had kind of started getting it back down, and so I got it down to 5 yesterday, and then today I went over it with a 5, and then I tried to drop down to 3, only it killed the motor. I mean, it doesn't really kill the motor. It's got this sort of safety kind of backup thing where if it struggles too hard, too much, it takes too much power or whatever, it'll stop. It'll turn off, and so I have to restart it. And the dumb part is even though it should be able to do 3 from 5, it still struggled because of all the piled up dead grass there. And I suppose I should have probably. I have a attachment with a bag on it, and I don't usually use it. I just let it kind of mulch over and whatever. But in this case, I probably should have put it in bags, um, garbage bags, just so it wasn't all over the ground, so that when I tried to mow over it, I wouldn't have a problem. And I just kind of forgot about that. So, anyways, I got the small patch of ground down to 3 on in my backyard, and then tomorrow I've got to go back to 7, and um, I don't know. Shoot, it might take another week just to get everything like completely mowed now because of that. The one thing I could do is I could go uh I could step down one height level each time. I could go 7, 6, 5, 4, and 3. That'll take forever, and plus it's kind of hard. Just going one level down, it's hard to see where you mowed over before. So that's why I kind of tend not to do that much. I tend to drop it down two heights. Anyways, it doesn't really matter. Oh, the rookie had a half day on Friday, so or today essentially. And in the UK, it is right now. It's about 5 o'clock. So cool. Half days are good. All days off are good too. Okay, so right now, here, let's take this and let's actually move this up here. Put that up there, and then we'll save the room data. Okay. So this is where we are. Okay, so this is the story beat as I wrote it. Oh, see, Night School Pool. That means that we're actually gonna spend some more time in a Wizard U, but this time it'll be with Sir William. That is when I get to this part. Right now Hubert's still in the Wizard U right now. So Hubert goes to the Wizard University Hall of Fame. He noticed one of the portraits is missing. Hubert realized it was the portrait of Maximilian Spell, who had attempted to take over the other realms before he was banished. Hubert looks at the other portraits and knows the other wizards have a shocked or surprised look on their faces. When Hubert came back to the mouse's dorm room, he shrunk Hubert again, and when Hubert was outside, he restored him to his normal size. Yeah, I just wanted to show that that when he leaves, he gets restored here. Okay, so this is the deal. Okay, so what he finds out here in the Hall of Fame. Okay, so you're gonna have to assume. I guess. Let's see. I guess a player or reader. I'm gonna have to assume that a player or reader can pick this up. I guess. Although most of the stuff I'm going to tell you anyways, because of the choose your own adventure portion of this, is just, revealing the next point in the story here. But he knows that he knows who the painting belongs to that's missing, and so Hubert is going to somehow relay that to the player. So, okay. So this is sort of the missing puzzle piece. Things right now will start falling into place. Why the king was acting weird, why everything is closed down, why this was sold, and of course it doesn't take a genius to figure out that Max Millions is actually Maximilian Spell, the evil sorcerer who was banished. And okay, if I had made a prequel in like AGS or something, like I was thinking about doing originally, um, you would have that to kind of flash back to. Of course, you would have known that this was a sequel to that other game, but the only reason I'm not doing a prequel now is because I don't want to spend all that time to come up with the extra backstory that I don't actually have created here, and further delay this game from going. In fact, usually, okay, so like in a movie, when you're writing a screenplay, basically you're supposed to be writing the point of the story that's the most important point to tell. In other words, somebody's life is going on at a certain time. This is the most important thing. It's like Lord of the Rings, right? With the exception of the Hobbit, we'll pretend the Hobbit doesn't exist, or I won't exactly say that, but we'll say that Bilbo is an important character in Lord of the Rings. He is, but he isn't in the sense of it's not his story and stuff. So we'll just say from the point of view that Frodo is the main character and the only character, and that Bilbo is just some secondary character, even though Bilbo's very very important to the whole Lord of the Rings, everything to do with the Lord of the Rings. But so the most important time to tell the story of the ring, or of what happens to the ring, or even Bilbo's family, or Frodo's family, or Frodo himself, is the point when Bilbo leaves. He decides to take off. Um, as 111th birthday, his 11th birthday. um, but so that's kind of the most important point in let's say Middle Earth, in about what's to happen about the war and all that stuff, and basically Frodo's family's life. That's the most important. The most important is when the ring falls to him, and so that's where you start the story. And in Star Wars, the most important point in the story is when they steal the Death Star plans, and they have to try to get it back to the Rebel Alliance, and that's the most important part in the story of Star Wars. That's kind of why. Now, Lucas will probably say something about um, like they needed something strong to open with or whatever. But I say, in a sense that the prequels kind of don't matter in the sense of the whole story. The important thing about the story is about Luke Skywalker. It's not about Anakin, or you know Luke's mom, Luke and Leia's mom, whatever, family dynamics and all that stuff. That's actually a build up to Star Wars, right? So all the backstory is just backstory. It's not the most important. It's important in the Star Wars universe in the galaxy because the Empire has total control now with this new super weapon, and so that's the most important time in, like, say, the whole timeline of that story. So when you start a story, eating nuts and filling with my LLMs. uh, that sounds like a fun weekend, rookie. It's okay. Um, so so if you think of all your favorite the Born Identity, right? And I guess I'm really just talking about the Matt Damon movies, the first three. The most important point in that story was when he is shot and left for dead in the water. After he couldn't assassinate somebody he was supposed to assassinate. And the book, what's funny is the movie is almost nothing like the book, in the sense that the book's story is completely different. In the Born Identity book, um, it was a program that they were trying to bring this assassin, international assassin, to bring him out in the open. This guy named Carlos, who was killing important people, and they couldn't get a handle on it. So what they did is they created their own assassin, and that's the Bourne Identity. Jason Bourne is an identity of a international assassin that is big enough to draw out Carlos. Um, and then when um, Jason Bourne is picked up by a fishing trawler, and he has amnesia. It's because they tried to kill him, and the whole thing about the Bourne Identity uh, was this fact that the reason that they had concocted this thing And so he has memories of being this assassin, and this assassin is kind of a bad guy, and he doesn't want to be it. And he finds out, of course, he's not it. It was a special program that they generated this identity in order to bring this other guy out in the open. And so that's sort of like the most important moment in that story, right? So whenever you think of stories that you want to tell, that's kind of why traditionally we didn't do like prequels and stuff. The Star Wars prequels is because I guess people wanted George Lucas to do more Star Wars movies or whatever, and that certain story was over. And the fact that he supposedly had an outline and it was based on like the old fashioned movie serials, so it'd be like a movie serial without the first three episodes or something. Um, but so whenever you're doing a story, so that's what what's important about this one. This story, okay, so the story came up about on its own. The prequel, what I call it prequel, is not really a prequel. It's just it's some ideas that I had and reasons for the characters doing what they did. So the most important point in this story is the fact that this tourist resort that's in a real Magic Kingdom is being taken over, and tourists and citizens are disappearing, and everything's closed down. And so this is like the most important moment in the history of Enchanted Lands, basically. So my prequel, if I would have made a prequel, would have been kind of what leads up to this. Did Violet Moonshadow take half of Hubert's magic? Why um, there's a couple of things in there about the princess being kidnapped. About there are various things that I had come up with, and I don't even remember half of them now, so I couldn't even probably reconstruct it properly. But basically, the idea was that Max had all of his bases covered, so he had taken care of that. He'd taken care of other things like Sir William. Sir William was the leader of the Enchanted Guard, which is basically the army or the military of Enchanted Lands. And so they took care of that, and then they took care of Hubert's magic, and there was a couple of things that basically they kind of had their bases covered. They vampires in my story are kind of misunderstood, and they're not at all evil or mean or anything like that. Um, so most of the Count's family were hunted down basically. And I know that's a little bit too dark for this kind of a story, but it's basically the backstory of why he's kind of like the last one, because they had hunted him down to extinction, fomenting fear, and that was the villains doing that. Anyways, what am I trying to get to? Um, okay, so and welcome to third viewer of my stream, which is someone in Rumble. So welcome to whoever you are, which is cool. Oh, Oops, it looks like Oops, it looks like an operating system. Okay. Anyways, okay. So this is the next thing. This is the next piece of information that you learn about, right? Hubert finds out that Maximilian's spell is the missing portrait, and he puts that together with the fact that the this hooded robed figure um, attempted to or stole the scepter, and now he's got kind of this bad feeling that's going on here now, because now he's pretty sure that he knows um, what who it is who's come back, and that's because he was banished. And so yeah, so this is a story beat. Now, here's the thing: I could, if I wanted to, I could totally make this a just another piece of information, just another page, or I could add some interesting choices. I kind of don't know whether I should expand every page out or whether I should just, you know, whether I should leave it as. I should maybe should ask ChatGPT. Um, okay, now reference recent chats. Oh, cool, 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 cool. Okay. Um, okay. So I'm on to the next story beat. There's a piece of the puzzle revealed. After we've gotten the full picture on what happened to the scepter. I don't know if you can come up with anything related to what I'm about. Well, to ask. But can you give me an idea of why I would want to put interesting choices in a story beat, or if I'm just going to write it out as a static page, like a cut scene. My next story beat is just a piece of information, and I don't see any real any real my neat story beat. My neat story beat. My next story beat is just a piece of information. I don't see any real what word am I looking for? Let's see. Uh nice. That's probably a good idea. A good way to sort of benchmark something. See. Any real opportunity for some action happening. I might should just make it the result of so it could technically just be the reward for solving the trophy room puzzle, even though there aren't any puzzles in this version yet. In the future final versions, will have when I get to a full-fledged interactive text adventure with parser, inventory, etc., that will have puzzles. Whoops. Okay, let's see what it says. It's a bit simple for the big models. Oh, yeah. This is a juicy design question. Let's split it up. I don't know. I still almost prefer ChatGPT to Grok, although I was using Grok for a while. I don't like the you know I don't like this all this superfluous stuff. I just like it to tell me stuff directly. I mean, I guess I could tell it, you know, the effusive being. I don't know what you call that. Um, being like super praising. I don't know what that word is, but momentum foreshadowing. Any cases now to plant seeds that pay off later might influence the dialogue options later appear down the road. Like I got the ship discovery that helps avoid wall of text cutscene syndrome. This is the reward moment after a complex reveal. Throwing a choice in might dilute the satisfaction. Sometimes just receiving the payoff cleanly feels better. If the story beat is complex, Max Portal's words, you don't want choices muddying the waters when the player's brain is already putting a piece together. Thematic weight. Sometimes the best way to emphasize an important clue is not to let the player distract themselves with side choices. Middle ground. Spice without branching. You don't need a real branching choice tree. You could add interpretive reactions. So a thief, clever, no ordinary burglar could pull it off. Blasted words, what good are you? Off on back to the same text, but the player gets to color Hubert's thought process. That's a thought, right? I can still add the choice in there, and it'll be like how he chooses to react. It's still not a puzzle, and it's not it's not hard that way, and it can be direct, right? I had the 5 century word detection spells. There were just a one thing, like one single choice. I could do the same thing here with the information. That's not a bad idea. When to answer that ChatGPT 5 got wrong at one point. Expect they fixed that now. Solve x where 5.9 equals x minus 5.11. Oh, yeah, I see. Interesting. Very interesting. It takes me 5.11 equals 5.9 minus x. .21 negative 0.21. Funny. Not very good at algebra. Only a minute. Two. Yep. 5.11 equals 5.9 minus x. So you add the inverse. 5.11 plus x equals 5.9. Hmm. That's interesting. Right. Okay. Anyways, let me get back to my thing here. What? Why am I in video details? Now this is all... Well, since I don't have anything in chat here, I'm going to go ahead and refresh my restream window here. So that I'm... Okay. 4 people, good. Thanks for people who are watching or listening. Middle ground. You don't need a row branch and choice tree. You could add interpretive reactions. Right. If this beat is a reward for a puzzle, you can keep it static for clarity and pacing, but sprinkling in a little interpretive choice is a great way to keep the player in the driver's seat without disrupting the flow. Now, I could actually figure that out myself, but that is a good idea. Have have the player be able to select a different reaction. Um, They'd be able to select a different reaction just to keep a semblance of agency. Why is that? It's gotta be semblance, huh? Yeah, semblance of agency. Mm. Um, you can. Um, let's see if we'll see if that's that will be helpful later. Pardon me. Um, See, now, with the little thing that you just showed, it says ChatGPT can actually reference other chats, which is good. That's sort of like having a memory without keeping everything in memory. Um, let's see. Before I actually go into the next thing here, I need to ask it about. Okay, so here, let me actually show you here. Just make sure everything is saved too. Um, to Okay, so let's just pick this, which is one of the spells. Runs hands over the case, feeling anything unusual. It feels like something's knocking around the case when it stops. I actually probably shouldn't say corresponds to the knocking he heard, just because you don't know. Uh, and I kind of do, but if you're doing these in any order, you kind of don't know if you heard that. So that should actually not be a thing in here. Then it stops. Um, Here, we'll just save it. Um, let's see what this one says. This one says, here's a click, hum, something knocking emanating from the case. That's just a sound. So he hasn't heard this yet. Corresponds to the knocking he's heard. Right? So that's the touch point here. This one's the audio deverberation. Let's see. Hand of touching, which is over here. We're actually got to remove that. Corresponds to the knocking you heard. We're going to take that out. And this one is, and this one, because if that's the top level, then he didn't hear that. Okay, so we saved those. Okay. So okay, so he casts these 3 spells and then comes to a conclusion based on all 3. And I spell that out in the next page before going to the actual next story beat. Next thing he does is go into the hallway, Hall of Fame. This is the actual next story beat, where he learns that, where he sees that Max's portrait missing and some odd things about the other portraits before that ends. I'm wondering if I might should combine them. See if it gives me a suggestion here, because if you want pacing to emphasize Huber's deduction, that gives way to its conclusion. Now, how a moment stands alone, then you reset the player's reader's focus before moving into the hallway mystery. Combine them. If you want the flow to feel more like one continuous sequence, in that case, Hubert pieces it together and immediately steps in the hall and discovers the next clue, so the momentum carries forward. Good middle ground. In the Tofu Room segment, with the deduction, make the player's choice reaction. Those little agency preserving options we talked about be the bridge example. Now that you know what happened to you, suddenly mutters suspicion about to confront their faith after the choice to transition right into the hallway scene. End of chapter, or we're like, well, it's not the end of Hubert's investigation. It is the end of him investigating what's going on with Wizard Q at the moment. After he leaves, the next story beat actually involves Sir William in a different location. Not to mention the fact that you probably come to the conclusion that the same person whose portrait was missing is probably the same person who stole the scepter. Um, there's no mystery about this person, as Hubert knows who was in the Hall of Fame. So it's nothing for him to realize that Max is back in the lands. So in essence, the conclusion of who stole the scepter and the not, it won't be realization, it's actually and the finding out that Max's painting is the one that's missing is simply part of the same information. I just thought of another thing too. Uh, something I just let's see. Max paintings one's missing. So, um, I didn't have a reason to for the painting to be stolen. I mean, he just takes it, and also the other portraits look like they're like in shock. Each of the portraits look like they're made of somebody in shock, and the idea is going to be that Max has trapped them in their own Hall of Fame paintings, and that would be a thing that could tie into this thing too of just making sure he takes care of everything. And in this case, since those wizards aren't, since I didn't come up with characters for them or anything, uh, um, it's simply before Hubert brought John on board, this thing happened where they were trapped, and so even Hubert didn't know it until he actually got there. He knows which one's missing, and then the other thing is I don't have a reason for it to be missing other than telling the player or telling Hubert that that he's Max has come back, right? So I could potentially turn that um, into another either another piece of information or another puzzle, another thing. Um, while everything's kind of established about what happens later, um, I can still find a way of working it in though. This information, this reason. Why do you take his own painting? Well, maybe we'll say we'll even say I'll just even add a new back piece of backstory before I read this. You might have already read it. I don't know. Probably not even paying attention to it though, so that's okay. Whatever. It doesn't really matter that much. I'm gonna write this in here before I read what ChatGPT is saying there. Um, so the reason that, and actually, my dad was saying that he thinks that there should be a reason that the scepter is stolen, not that it's just stolen just to steal it. One thing, it's made out of quicksilver, so that could be a reason to want to steal it. My original idea for a reason was the fact that he was testing out the device and making sure it worked properly, and that was successful when he stole the scepter. And I can still leave it that way because that's not a bad actual reason for it to happen. but maybe the scepter is well, it was used as a trophy for the games, so it can't be really a thing of ruling. In other words, um it can't be a scepter used by rulers, right? So, but it could still have some significance because it was just being used as a trophy, right? And maybe there's a backstory about that too. Actually, okay, I'll show you a little bit of a spoiler. It's not really a spoiler because you're not going to play it in the game, and I was only going to use this little bit of information if I were ever going to make a sequel. And the only way I'd ever make a sequel is if I made this and it was finished, and people liked it and wanted more, and I could come up with a story. There's a little bit of a mystery as to where the real king is. Nobody still knows. Um, we don't know if he's dead. We don't know if he's been put in another realm or if he's trapped somewhere or whatever. But so there was a deal with the real king, finding out where the real king, and that's what a sequel would entail. A sequel would be about finding the real king and finding out what happened to him. And then another thought would be um, okay, so there's another actually more of a spoiler that I still don't know if I'm going to add it in there, but since I'm just sharing it to whoever's watching this or listening to it, uh, so that not many people would know it anyways. Little mystery there. Um, but basically, I had an older story where called the Seventh Gem, where they were trying to find the seventh gem, and what it was uh, each of the seven children of the king and queen of this kingdom, whatever. Um, something bad had happened that they decided that they would hide their children in different realms, and they hid the seventh one in our realm, and so. You find out the gem is an actual gemstone. It's one of the seven princes of this land, and he comes back in and defeats the bad guy. I didn't really have that much of a story in there. It was kind of what sort of evolved into this a little bit. But so I carried that a little bit with me into the story, meaning that John that doesn't actually come from our land. He actually comes from Enchanted lands, and he's actually the rightful king. And so I wasn't even going to do that in this game here. But maybe if I had a sequel, I might be where he searches for his father and he finds out he's actually the real king's son, and all this kind of cool stuff. And um, so I'm kind of going, well, maybe uh, the scepter is actually that is actually John's scepter, you know. Maybe it's a thing of an actual it's an actual symbol of ruling, but nobody knows it in its current form. In its current form, it's the idea is maybe it was made in carved in the image of the real scepter, um, and that maybe nobody's found it. So maybe the scepter, maybe Max knows the real history of the scepter, and he knows that actually that is the real scepter. It's just been transformed into just basically a Quicksilver scepter instead of being like the real thing with like the real gems, and it would have Quicksilver in it, whatever. It doesn't even have to be Quicksilver. That's one thing I said. It's just a scepter, so it might not be. It could be a carving of a scepter. It doesn't even have to be a real scepter as far as we know it, and then later on you find out it's actually the real scepter, that it belongs to John, and that was changed via magic so that somebody couldn't claim leadership of the kingdom. I could do that. Um, So now back to the idea of the reason for the portrait missing. You might think, well, he's doing that so that people don't suspect who he is, because nobody really knows those guys on the Hall of Fame, especially now that it's a hallway. But Hubert does know, because he was in the beginning, so he knows everyone that's on there, and so I'm thinking maybe there's got to be a different reason for the portrait to be missing. Maybe Max's magic was tied up in the portrait. Now I don't have Max really doing anything magical per se, anything as far as being a wizard, an evil sorcerer or wizard goes in the story. So that might be a thing if I introduce that as a thing that that would mean that I would have to later pay off on that. In other words, I'd have to have he'd have to be using his magic for something, for some reason. Maybe a duel with him and Hubert. Maybe I didn't really have that on there. There's a fight between John and Max, not Hubert and Max. So anyways, I was just thinking in my head. What if the reason he removed the portrait is because his magic is somehow tied to the portrait, and so he has to get onto that just so nobody stops him again, you know? Because maybe that's what they did before they banished him. They zapped his magic and put it in his Hall of Fame portrait. Before then, the Hall of Fame portrait was just a portrait because he was a good student and stuff. Although that doesn't really bear out because of the profile that I did. Supposedly, him and the Black Knight were pretty bad dudes back in the day, back when it was still school and an actual school. So um, maybe he wasn't ever a good dude, but maybe so what they did when they banished him is they took put his magic into the portrait and then hung it there. Maybe his portrait was never in the Hall of Fame, but they did that as a protection because they knew that all real wizards there are professors and stuff, and they know that it would be safe, that nobody would get to it. But yeah, that's not a bad idea. And maybe too, that's why he had to get everybody to do stuff for him, because he doesn't even have his own magic that way. And now, that being said, there probably needs to be some way, something that manifests, something that shows you that he has magic. Huh, that's a thought. I might have to change the end fight to where Max uses his magic against John, even though he still doesn't ultimately win. So I'll have to. There's a struggle and stuff. So maybe after Hubert gets his magic back, that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. Um, like possible reason a scepter. So my original reason the scepter is stolen is because Max is testing out his portal opening device, which is successful. Another possible reason, though, could be that it's it's uh it's a royal scepter that was transformed into some other material like wood and used as a trophy to keep it safe. Um, also, Max's portrait missing isn't a good reason. Doesn't have a good reason it's missing. Except Max hoping no one would figure this out. Hubert knows everything that went on before, and so he automatically knows who the portrait belonged to. I figure maybe when they banished him, they took his magic and put it into the portrait, and that's why it's even in there, because the other wizard professors could keep an eye on it. So when Max manages to take it, he takes the other wizards and traps them into their own paintings. Okay, so I gotta save that. Okay, so let's read what ChatGPT said. I might even get to the rest of this today, but that's okay because I'm still, I guess I'm still just trying to define the process, right? So the more I do this, the faster and easier and better it will get, right? Got it. In that case, it makes the most sense to fold the conclusion plus hallway reveal into one unified beat. Narrative logic. The scepter, theft, reconstruction, the missing portrait both point to the same culprit. Keeping them split risks making it feel like you're dragging out a mystery that isn't really a mystery anymore. Player experience. They feel rewarded for sticking with Hubert's investigation if the payoff is a strong combined reveal. The spells give them the how, and the hallway confirms the who. Structural flow. Since you're transitioning to Sir William's thread after this, having one neat package that says Hebert uncovered the truth, Max's back creates a clean handoff to the next BLB without leaving loose ends. You can still break it up slightly if you want rhythm, e.g. small conclusion page with choices for reaction. Then, without delay, the next page rolls right into the Hall of Fame reveal. But in practice, it'll read like one connected unit. Now I can figure that out myself. Okay, so sure. I guess that's all right. It's not really gonna hurt anything in the future here. Um, let's see. Well, it's really slugging down the page though. That's weird. Got it logged. No. Um. Okay, so no thanks. You don't need to do anything for a moment. I'm still considering something. I just came up with a reason this portrait is missing. Reason his portrait is missing. You know, supposedly George Lucas was writing down a log and had produced several video clips for StarWars.com. I kind of remember it for the prequels, where he'd come up with the notes and stuff. And I don't know if he actually even told you. He probably didn't. He probably did the same thing that Tim Schafer did. Tim Schafer. Tim Schafer. When he went to do Broken Age, George Lucas probably went into his room and nobody saw him until he came out again. And I don't know. It'd be kind of annoying to me if I wanted to see the making of something happen, especially after I had watched it. Right? Presumably you're gonna see this. Maybe you'll see it beforehand, and you don't really want to give them spoilers. But after the fact, they'll see it, and then they'll presumably want to know, well, how did you get to this point, right? What did you come up with? And that's what I'm attempting to show in these live streams. Okay, so where's portrait? The reason his portrait is missing. I didn't really have it before. I was thinking along the lines that this is what reveals to Hubert that Max is back. In fact, the portrait is missing. Of course, someone that's smart would not purposely remove a portrait unless he thinks no one knows it's there or why it was. A layman could let's see, an ordinary person could walk in and not think anything of it because he doesn't know the backstory. However, this person wouldn't be important anyway. But Hubert knows everything about what's going on. So I figure what happened to Max before they banished him was they took his magic and put it into the portrait, then stuck it into the Hall of Fame so that all of the other wizards could keep tabs on it. Him being evil wouldn't have warranted a spot in the Hall of Fame. But this is a good way, but his magic is a good reason to keep it there. This also dovetails nicely with the fact that all the other portraits, the wizards, all look like that all the other portraits of the wizards look like they're shocked or surprised. Why? Because he put each one of them into their own paintings once he got his magic back. Okay, I don't even know why I'm telling this to ChatGPT, but it'll be part of the story, so maybe it'll remember it or whatever. Let's see. The Lazarus gives a concrete in-universe reason for the missing portrait. Explains why Huber can immediately connect the dots, provides subtle world building for why the other portraits look shocked. Plus, it works as a clever signal to the player reader. The missing portrait isn't just a random. It's evidence that Max is back and active, which Huber can interpret right away. Also gives Max a more cunning, deliberate character. He's not just stealing things or breaking rules. He's using the Hall of Fame itself as a tool for mischief and surveillance. That's a smart, non-obvious villain move that reinforces his intelligence and malice. If you want, you could even drop tiny clues from the environment earlier, maybe some subtle shimmer or residue from magical transfer, so the player reader has to breadcrumb trail that makes the reveal feel earned. No thanks. This will be enough. Plus, my time is up for today, and I'll talk to you about it possibly on Monday. Okay, granted, I didn't actually get the thing done in the thing here, but I did come up with, oh, that's the right thing. I was close that. Okay, it's closed. Yeah. So that just, so I had the thing originally. I had the thing is the portrait was his portrait was missing, and their portraits all looked shocked and surprised. Right? I didn't have a reason before, but I just came up with a reason today, which kind of makes sense, and it does kind of work. Kind of what ChatGPT said. Thank you. Here, I'll put a thank you here. Okay. Yeah, so I just came up with this, and it kind of makes sense, and it kind of works. Except for I have to be a little bit careful that there's a payoff later that you get to see him use or attempt to use his magic later. So yeah, that will be a thing that I'll probably add in the fight scene, the end fight scene or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty good. We just did a little bit of extra world building here, and that works. So. I guess on Monday we'll try to finish up this the actual thing here. I might add a couple of reaction dailies that lead to the hallway. That way there's a little bit of a deal in between there, and it can still feel like a little bit of an agency in there. It's just you know I'll have to have the reaction, but the reaction will be him directly going into the hallway and kind of going, okay, and then like, who would be clever enough to pull this off? Um, maybe the hallway will hold some answers or something, or I'll figure out like I'll do like three different things, and they'll just be kind of little deals or something. Anyways, so yeah, so okay, say that. Okay, that's saved now, and alrighty, so that's the end of part one, and I want to thank you for watching and or listening, and yeah, bouncing ideas. Yep, exactly. Um, yeah. So yeah, I'll see you in an hour for part two, and we'll work on more layout tool stuff. Maybe I'll be able to select and move around panels, and maybe I'll even get to the actual save button, because that's just a button that I got to create somewhere. Either I'll do it in the Redot editor, and add it into my scene, or I could do it programmatically, I guess, but we'll do that, and so that way I'll be able to move things around and be able to save it. So when it reloads it, it'll reload it. Even when it loads it in the editor, it'll load the new location. That'll be cool. Anyways, yep. So, yeah, I'll see you on the other side. Thank you for watching part 1 of stream 170. Where are we at? 176? Is that what it is? Anyways. Yeah. Anyways. Okay. So see you then. See you in an hour.